welcome to Ungimmicked. We are very excited to bring you our third episode in this podcast, and of course, we are joined by the whole gang. We have Alexandra,
Hello.
we have Connor,
Hello.
we have Matthew, and we have Sanjeev. My name is Gonzalo. I will be your host, and I'm terribly excited to be here once again. It has been very good to do the first two episodes, to see that people are excited, and we are so excited as well on this side. And
We have been hearing your feedback, people. You are amazing, and we're very happy to bring this to you.
Absolutely.
May I note that we're back this week with worse haircuts than last week, but better cuts the next week. Quarantine is hitting hard. All I'm gonna say.
And you got me for bad jokes last time?
I'm
Oh my
sorry.
God.
I'm gonna have to take that out.
The role cycles every podcast. We switch out between them.
Let's
yeah.
get the
We
ball
just
rolling,
scapegoat.
gentlemen. We're going to start with our 1 minute rec. And this week we have Matthew O'Neill to present that.
Yeah, awesome. So I always wanted to do this. We actually did this in the first ever time we tried this, but it didn't work out, so it didn't get released. Darren Brown, my favorite performer ever. These guys know I cannot stop raving, and I'm sometimes comparing myself to Darren Brown. His show
As jokes, of course.
No, not in a good way. I mean, like I want to be at that level. I don't compare myself on the
You
level
strive
yet,
to be
ever.
him. You aspire.
There you go. That's what it is, right? So, but a lot of his old or somewhat recent live shows are on YouTube, and the one I'm going to recommend is Svengali because it's structured beautifully. It's a great show, super entertaining, and honestly so much fun to just watch. It's such an amazing show. So that's my 1 minute rec.
And
Hopefully
you
that
know
was
what?
about a minute.
Watching Darren Brown on a more serious note is also a great, I'm not going to say message of hope, but I'm still going to say it. For all those close-up guys, if you're doing weddings and restaurants and you're tired, well, Darren Brown was doing that in card tricks before he became an international superstar.
He's a national treasure.
Yeah, he is.
Nicolas Cage is going to steal him.
Matthew, thank you for that 1 minute recommendation. Darren Brown's Svengali show was Matthew's recommendation for this week. I've seen that show as well, recommended by Matthew. And it is
And it's
very
on YouTube, right?
it is on YouTube.
It's on YouTube.
So you can just look it up after you finish listening to this podcast. Of course, you can you can of course go and look that up. Well, thanks once again, Matthew. So let's start with our topic this week. This week we'll be talking about judging the quality of magic, and Alex is presenting that for us today.
That is going to be an interesting topic for everyone, I think, because we toss around the words good and bad magic a little bit too often, and sometimes it's more to make points than anything else. We're not really critiquing anything, but how about we start critiquing that? That was not originally the subject I wanted to deal with, but, and here's going to be a little story time, and you guys know this story. I was just casually scrolling through my feed, watching some magic videos, and there was this magic video on a group, and I don't want to, it's not about the trick, but it was a mad trick. But more importantly, it was mostly a guy just watching his cards while people were sort of going, what's he doing? And, fair enough, you see a bunch of those videos online, but the caption read, it wasn't French originally, I'll try not butchering the translation, but it said something like, you can tell how good a magic trick is by the audience's reactions. I almost had a stroke. So I composed myself a little bit, and I made sure that I wasn't misunderstanding anything, or that the guy just didn't express properly. Just casually posted that and didn't think too much about the description. Well, he was. So it's really hard for me to express how much I disagree with that statement. So it had me thinking, okay, what actually does make a good magic trick? That's subject for another time. And by extension, what makes good magic? And answering that isn't too hard. I have no fucking clue. There are so many things that can come into account. I don't have the answer. And like I was taught to, well, when you have no clue, just try observing the problem from a new perspective. Which leads me to the question that I'd like to share with you guys, and I want to spend the first part of this podcast discussing it, is what does not make good magic? Okay, let me put it out there. Let me hear your reaction.
Oh, cool. That is cool. I love that. Immediately what comes to mind is the people who will do a thing that's sort of like I got you kind of magic. If you want to talk about what is bad, it's the ones who think magic is about, or maybe they don't think it, but they project it.
Express
magic
it, yeah.
being about me. Oh, ha! I've got you guys. Look how much smarter I am than you. I know the secrets. You don't. You guys are stupid.
Okay, maybe I didn't express myself. So eventually we're going to be talking about judging magic, but I don't want this. I don't want this to be about pointing fingers and say, "Hey, this is bad. This is bad." I just want to analyze what isn't, because I'm a mathematician. So when you analyze problems and conditions, you have sufficient conditions and necessary conditions. Yeah. And the way the guy was expressing it was like the reaction is necessary and sufficient, which was my problem regarding that. So I just want to talk to those things that really help bring good magic or good reactions or whatever, but discuss what don't they accomplish and what else can accomplish that.
I see that. Let me clarify what I just said, and I'll bring it to the others. Alienating your audience. Doing stuff that alienates your audience and makes a huge separation between it is no bueno.
Absolutely, I would have to agree.
Okay.
And I think everyone here is going to agree.
Yeah.
But I want some more hot takes.
No, like the first thing that my mind jumps to is, I don't know. I think it's always tempting to look at an absolute and try to find an exception. Now I'm trying to think: is there ever a situation where intentionally alienating your audience can lead to some interesting or good or beneficial artistic output? And if I think of something, I will tell you guys. That's all I have to say. That's a tough one. I am thinking.
Yeah, but even though you can find exceptions, if you
it's definitely
place that in
good
question,
general,
alienating your audience does not make good magic. And okay, let me just put a hot take out there for you, so maybe you can get the feel for what I'm looking out of you guys. Doing a good magic trick does not make good magic.
Interesting.
Yeah. That is yeah.
Okay.
Oh my god. Because
I get what we're talking about.
you can have people who do so impossible. Say they have one card on the table and someone says, "Name any card," and then they flip it over, but then the audience is like, "Oh, cool. I don't care."
Yeah, there's like doing magic is it's such a complex art, and the effect of it's art or not is another question for another day. But there's acting involved, there's scenario, there's the context you're doing it. You have a lot of people skills involved. You have technique, you have elocution, you have so much, but no one of them is sufficient. So let's talk about that.
Okay. I think just like Connor, I had like an epiphany. Okay, I get it now. It makes sense. In that case, my counter question would be, I really love what you just said. You can do a good magic trick, and that does not necessarily make good magic. So, I think our first order of business is that we're going to have to define magic, because I think until we do that, we can't really make sure that we're all on the same page to be able to have a constructive discussion on this topic. So, what would you guys posit as definitions for magic? I mean, here we are.
Well, magic has to be more than the tricks. And Alex already said that by saying that a good magic trick does not make good magic, which means that a trick is just one component of the magic as a whole. To me, there are numerous components that I could list. I'm going to list the most important ones. Presentation, I don't mean that necessarily in the story that you're telling. I think that's a different thing. But the way you present the magic, the context you present the magic in. It's very different to do magic in a formal setting or a laid back setting when you're in a party. So that's the presentation that I mean. I don't mean the story. Which the story is also a component, but it's a different one from presentation. It's not, I don't think they are the same thing, even though that when we're speaking, we normally use the term interchangeably. So I think that to have good magic, you need to have a good, compelling, I'm going to resort to the term story for the lack of a better one. You need to present it in the right context. The right trick in the right story in the right context. And the trick has to be magical, has to be impossible, it has to be impressive. Otherwise, it's not magic, it's just a normal thing that happens. And I know Connor
would love to disagree.
I have to disagree.
Okay, well.
Well, I think that if we had to define... Okay, so if we have to start somewhere where we have to define magic... I feel like all those things with scripting, routine, acting, that's all in addition to magic that makes it good or makes it better than it could be. But I think we have to define what is magic, or like
Yeah.
the magic trick, right? And I think that just to me, like if I had to think off the top of my head, magic is like an act of astonishment that's done by purportedly magic, but actually by like trickery and illusion. Now that's obviously just like a blanket sentence of a magic trick, right? But then all those things on top of it with good scripting and acting is what makes good magic.
Yeah, I just don't agree with the word active. I think magic can very well be passive. Let me maybe give an idea of, I think. So I'm just furiously typing to look for the name of what I'm about to say, which unfortunately I don't remember and I didn't find it. And it's a philosopher that looked into defining things, and take the definition of a chair. And what he says is that we don't have an absolute object as a chair that we share as a common feature of our collective minds. Say, okay, everything that resembles this is a chair. What the guy, I'm sorry, I would love to call the author here, is every time you call something a chair, you're adding that to the common pool of things humanity now understands as a chair. So it's the active state of calling things magic. You're sort of appending that to what magic already is. So at the beginning, magic could just be, an eclipse. Like you live before 2,000 years ago, and the sun suddenly disappears. That is magic.
Wow.
Now somebody sees cups and balls, say, well, what the hell? I don't understand any of this. It has to be some sort of magic. Boom, that becomes part of the magic. And as we call things magic, sort of appends that definition, and to be extremely vast and have a spectrum that no one man can explain the extent of, I believe.
God, that is so cool. That made me think of also one thing is having multiple definitions, like what you said with the chair. You have a chair, and you can someone says define a chair. Oh, it's something on which you sit. That's its purpose. Ask someone else to define a chair. Oh, it is a piece of wood with a base, a back, and 4 legs. You have 2 different definitions of the same thing that are both. I don't know if they're equally valid, but they're both really valid.
But you can both disagree with them.
Absolutely. And here's an interesting definition of magic that I'm not saying it's mine, but here's a cool one that I heard from a guy Alex really respects. So
this is our
so you know
standard
it's
now.
gonna be good. There's causes and there's effects. Alex, can you see where this is going? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do.
All right, great. It was in a previous podcast. You look it up and you'll know who I'm talking about. All right, but causes and effects, right? And there's a link. Our brains, we see an effect where we want to see a cause, and if we have a cause, we are trying to always predict what the effect is. So maybe magic is when those things do not correlate, when their causes have not the desired effect, or an effect that can't have the cause that it got.
You son of a...
Yeah,
That's
right?
a good definition. Holy...
Is that interesting?
I'm sorry, you're going to have a lot of bleeping to do, Gonzalo. But, wow, that's a great definition.
Could be interesting.
I mean, it's just...
Yeah, wow.
I think it's a great poetic definition, but I don't know if it accomplishes our ends, because that doesn't help separate magic tricks from magic, in my opinion.
Well,
issue.
take this. He used the example of dropping a paper napkin on the floor. If you're going to let it go of a paper napkin, what is the effect? It's going to fall to the floor.
Yes.
So, if it goes up and it flies into the balcony, that's still an effect. This guy, this isn't really based on your point. It's not agreeing or disagreeing. It's sort of extra.
Yeah, I see
But
that now.
if you drop it and it just stopped, there is no effect to your cause. And then you go there for a second and it's like, whoa, what's going on? Your whole logic system is twisted upside down. A very magical moment. Nothing to do with what you said, by the way. I'm sorry. Connor had something to say?
Well, I was just going to say, I was like, if we're looking at this... Oh, yeah, okay. I mean, trying to get back on subject. My thing is totally not on subject. I was just going to say that if we're looking at this from what Sanjeev was saying, I'm like, there is the possibility that, like, you could take that definition and apply it to something like an act of kindness, that I do something with the cause of trying to do something. I'm gonna buy Matt, I'm gonna buy you a new computer, right? Sorry, I know you just got one. And then like it ends up breaking or shipping on the way. That's an undesired outcome and effect to what I caused. And I caused you pain, but that's not magic. Does that make sense? I did a really bad job of explaining that.
Okay, I see your point. Connor. But okay, see, here's my issue. I think this is a really cool poetic definition, but I think it applies more to a magic trick. A magic trick is a moment where cause and effect are misaligned. And again, misalignment can come from a subversion of expectations on the effect side or on the cause side. But, for example, a really horribly performed, literally any, is this your card? No. Wow, now it's your card. Okay? Or even if there's not even a card pick, let's make it a really bad extreme. Just do a double lift, turn it over, and then lift it up as a single lift. Okay? I might be, I don't think I'm alone in this. I personally would not define that as magic. Okay? It's not even a magic trick. But there is that disalignment between cause and effect. You just turned over the card, you turned it over, and you turned it back over. It should not have changed, but it does. So, there is something more that turns this moment of subversion into something more, into a magical moment. What do you guys think that's something?
So going to that, it's an addition, but it's not sufficient.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get back to the conditions. I don't think this is a necessary and sufficient condition to define magic, but I think it's a great way to start. Now, just to be clear, this subject is not about defining magic from magic trick. In fact, magic trick does not appear in the thesis I wanted to discuss today. It's sort of, I just broadened something that was about a magic trick very much. So now that we sort of discussed about how we see magic and the way we can talk about it, okay, now that magic is that, what does not make good magic? And let me give my answer here immediately so it can loosen things up. I think everything. Nothing alone makes good magic. If you take one single thing, that alone cannot make good magic. So I just want to analyze closely what are maybe some ingredients that appear most often in good magic, maybe the ingredients that appear the most often in horror magic, quote unquote, and let's talk a little bit about that.
I think one thing that could possibly make magic, or bad magic, is the lack of vulnerability in the performer. I feel like vulnerability is a huge thing to me, where I want to see a person on stage. No, this is a personal preference. I want to see a person, and if you're playing a character, I feel like that's still important to be vulnerable on stage. But I feel like it's easier to connect with the audience, and it creates a better environment.
More so than vulnerability. Some people take vulnerability in the wrong way, like they think it's weakness. But I think, so to change sort of the word to give the same feeling behind it, humanity, maybe.
There you go, man.
Is there anything that isn't human that has been considered good magic? I feel like there's a lot of it that has that human aspect of it, and that way the people won't be turned off by the word vulnerable.
Okay, to add one, I think your guys we're all in agreement. Here's one that I'm not sure on yet. Emotion. Do you think emotion is necessary to make good magic?
Oh, well, then you'd have to define emotion, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's an emotional reaction.
Well, even if you take a complete, like, just imagine what a piece of magic with complete lack of emotion would be. It's even hard to picture.
Yeah.
That wouldn't involve any emotion, no anger, no empathy, no compassion, no joy, no excitement, none of that. Is it even possible?
Like the counter argument I had thought of was, if a reaction is purely, that's not supposed to happen. But even then, that's technically confusion, or some subversion, which is therefore an emotional reaction. So
you can't be human without any emotions. You're a robot.
Can a robot do a magic trick? Is it still a magic trick?
Ooh.
No, I'm still proposing my mechanical ambitious card. You know, in the box.
And it's
I think it's only magic because you're the one bringing that prop and turning that lever.
That's true.
It's with a mechanical ambitious card that we are going to take our break.
Oh, okay. I want to say
This
something.
went
That's-
all over the place, and I love it.
No, Connor, I'm
gorgeous.
gonna ask you to hold that thought because we are at the halfway point. So this is the time where we take just 1 or 2 minutes to relax, sit back. We are going to get to our breather crimp in just 1 second. First, I have to do our social media plug because, of course, I have to do it. This podcast is now for sure and 100% available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, on Stitcher, and it's also on YouTube. So you can definitely go to youtube.com/ungimmick and watch our podcast. We're all now, for the first two, I was in a dungeon made in my closet. I see that Connor is now as well in his own little dungeon. So if you want to join us on YouTube, you can definitely do that. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/ungimmick. Or at Instagram, or on
Tell me,
Instagram.
Gonzalo, would you just remind us how do you spell ungimmick?
So much.
Please, Gonzalo.
Ungimmick.
Please.
We need to know.
How is it spelled?
Ungimmick is spelled UNGIMMICKED. Ungimmick.
Now we know.
Now you all know. I'll have to do it once an episode.
So hit us up on Instagram. If you guys have suggestions for anything you'd be interested in hearing about or questions about topics, shoot us a DM, put us in the comments. We'd be really happy to hear about it.
Absolutely. And finally, if you feel so inclined, you can also check us out on Patreon. That's patreon.com/ungimmick. But no one has to do that, so you can just keep listening to all this for free. That's just if you ever. That's the
on.
best
What a
pitch
sell,
ever.
what a
Right?
sell.
Sales pitch I've ever heard.
No,
You're the
if you-
worst salesman
If you
I've ever met in my
ever feel so inclined, you can head over and give us a couple bucks.
Listen. Gonzalo, let me
Give
do that
us
part
your
for
money,
you.
everybody.
If you want to help Matthew get out of his Harry Potter closet and give him access to a proper place, please consider supporting us on Patreon. We'll make good
I
use
just
of
need
that.
a sock. Just one sock.
Let's clarify.
Matthew, high five.
Let's
I
clarify.
appreciated that.
Matt is literally in a closet underneath the stairs. That is why it's a
Yes,
Harry Potter
yes.
closet. It is
Wait,
underneath the
wait,
stairs.
guys. If you want to fund Matthew to buy a second T for his name, he desperately needs it.
Oh no.
Desperately needs it. We need to reestablish order in this universe.
No,
we
Matthew's
need
parents were
balance.
like
Please,
the
guys.
old newspapers that would only print words with less letters to condense it and make
Yeah.
it cheaper. You know, it was too expensive to say Matthew with 2 T's, so just one was enough.
You guys are doing me too dirty. Go back to
Matthew, I love you.
Completely
Matthew, I love
cracked
you.
I guess this is the thing. You know what? For the sake of the podcast, I'll be the scapegoat. But screw you guys.
Every episode, we have a new reason for the Patreon to help Matthew. We'll come up with one. It's like a segment on its own. Yeah.
Yeah, it's-
I want compensation.
Connor, I'm gonna pass it to you. You can present this week's breather crimp whenever you're ready.
Yeah. So thanks to Alex, I am now a reader of The Jerks, and on one of his previous posts recently, he talked about his friend Eric, and he just released a website. It's called Friends and Astronauts, and they release unpublicized magic tricks, just either a simple effect or like just a little coin vanish, just a small little routine. It's a bunch of really fun stuff. I've been looking through it, just kind of jamming on some of the ideas. They release it in collections, and so usually it's like collection 1 will come out, and then after a week or two it'll go away, and then collection 2 will come out. So it's this is done because of the coronavirus and the COVID-19 self-quarantine. So I highly suggest you go check it out. And when you search it up, Friends and Astronauts, make sure you use parentheses. What are those called? What are they called?
Quotation marks?
Quotation marks. Make sure you use quotes around Friends and Astronauts, because if you look it up right away, it won't come up. So if you use quotes, it'll bring you directly to the website.
Okay, so the website is...
Friends and astronauts.
Friendsandastronauts.com.
Yeah. Don't ask him to spell it.
That's
No,
me
don't
spelling.
worry. And I believe, tell me if I'm wrong, Connor, but all that is for free.
Oh,
Oh,
it
yeah.
is entirely for free.
So why not?
But you can donate, I think.
You should.
Let me check.
That's true.
You should.
I need to get out of my closet, guys. Come on. All right.
Well, thank you, Connor, for the breather crimp today. Friends and astronauts. That was a weird pronunciation. Just came out like
Yes.
that. Friendsandastronauts.com. And Connor, I'm going to bring it right back to you. because you had a point
Okay.
that you wanted to finish with the discussion, so you can take it.
Yeah, it's can a robot do magic? And I'm gonna completely say no, and this is exactly why. It's my phone, right? I use my phone every day, and I look it up. I have no idea how it works. It is complete magic to me, and it is so insignificant. I look over it. I literally search up on Google anything, and it pops up millions of results. I have no idea how it works, and yet I am so and completely unfazed by it.
Penn
Yeah,
Jillette made
that's
that
an
point,
example.
actually.
That's not.
Yeah.
We'll have to.
But yeah,
this is a great discussion. We should have it at some point.
Good thing we're airing this.
Alex, do you want to repeat the topic for us? Because I think we're all slowly getting a new understanding of it as you
absolutely.
bring up
So
more
good
points.
thing that on the first part of the podcast, I just wanted to get some hot reactions about that sort of thing. What doesn't make good magic, and we sort of freestyled it, and we had some great discussion. So let's bring it back. And fortunately, the only thing that really stemmed from that first part of the discussion is there is not a given set of parameters that guarantees good magic. I think everyone would have to agree with that. We know some great ingredients, but I doubt the existence of a recipe, really. Everyone has their own vision or feeling or
That was a
what
good
is-
quote. God damn.
Thanks.
Woo!
So yeah, we all have our feeling or vision of what good, bad magic is, and it's really hard to get it out. So I think the thing we should really be concerned about when talking about good and bad magic is how we're forming our judgment and how we're sharing it to other people. So I would like for us to now talk about how you should look into forming, how conscious and unconscious decisions are made, and how you go about sharing it to stay within the realm of politeness and productiveness.
Okay, so I'm going to jump in here. And I think the first thing we have to do is fully embrace the point we made in that first half, that the reaction and interpretation of magic is inherently subjective, at least to a very large degree, I believe. And so we should embrace that and therefore give all honest opinions. So your first reaction to a piece of magic, I think that is your reaction. I think that is your interpretation. And we need to express it honestly with those two caveats, right? The first is, this is my subjective interpretation. And once I share it with you, it is up to you, for you to decide whether this piece of advice aligns with what your vision is for your piece of magic. And I think those two sides, both parties kind of approaching it with more sensitivity, would ease up a lot of the almost delicate insecurity that I think pervades the magic community around the critique and the criticism of magic, whether it's on the internet, YouTube, or even in person.
Just like Connor's comment on, what was it, episode 1? When did you do the assembly, Connor?
I did the assembly on episode 1.
Yeah, okay. Or say the quote again.
Oh,
Yeah.
there are no two words in the English. Totally butchered it. I'm starting over. There are no two
All right.
words. There are no two words in the English language more harmful than good job.
Yeah, we're scared to give criticism. We want to be the best, and almost maybe you disagree with this, please. We will feel like we want others to feel the way we want to feel for being the best, and then we'll give them the almost the satisfaction.
Was
of saying,
it
"Oh, yeah, that
harmful
was
in the
cool."
quote?
Harmful or dangerous?
I sort of I didn't remember the quote that way. It was funny. Okay.
Yeah.
But I think Sanjeev has a great point here, and because there are indeed sort of two, you can obviously go black and white and say essentially there are people that want to critique everything that's, and it's sort of counterproductive because now no one listens to them anymore, and people that are just, want to scare away from giving opinions to not make enemies, which I think is more liable to our art form than the other one, but that's strictly an opinion. But I think that opening up our spirits is very important because now you have perfect excuses, right? If anyone critiques anything, it's very easy to say, well, he doesn't see this thing as I do. And so that's
Guys,
dangerous.
Doesn't get it.
To add on to that,
It's not a phase, Mom.
It's not a phase, Mom. To add on as a personal example, like every time I think in the past few weeks when I come up with a new idea, not the first, but one of the first thoughts that pops into my head is always, yikes, what are the boys gonna think about this, right? There's almost it's just an automatic response, and every single time I have to be like, okay, calm down. That's not how you're supposed to be approaching it. Even today, and I assume this is gonna stay no matter how long I know you guys. When I bring a piece of magic or a new idea to show you guys, I will always hate the process. I will hate everything about it. I will hate joining the call. I will hate showing it to you guys, and I will hate hearing your feedback. But that is more because it's a very uncomfortable feeling. And the only way I've been able to push myself to keep doing it is think about the end goal. My end goal is to do the best magic I possibly can, and constantly remind yourself that this extremely uncomfortable process will get you closer to that end goal, no matter how much it almost hurts in the moment, right?
It does hurt
So
sometimes.
you're in
Yeah.
a way you're saying that to make good magic, because that is the overarching theme here. To make good magic, you have to go through this process that you might not even enjoy, but it's necessary. You would consider that process necessary for the creation of good magic.
I mean, I don't know anyone who became incredible on their own. All the legends we
Or
talk to,
coming easily.
yeah, I mean, they all talk about their inspirations, their icons, their mentors, their teachers, all the people they credit for help. And I think it's insane to think that we could do that without everything that they had to go through.
I agree with you 100%. I really wanted you to say that because I think it's a very important point that we're making here.
Thank you
And
for bringing
Sanjeev,
that up.
notice how those teachers are all the ones, they'll say, those are the ones who were the hardest on me. They were the
Yeah.
ones who pushed me the most. And I completely agree with Sanjeev. Like, I go into the call and I'm like, it's actually more Alex, because he's the one
Fair.
who's the
Yeah,
least
that's
afraid
fair.
to just to give
Yeah,
you the
yeah, yeah.
honest truth of how bad it is. So I started thinking, okay, what's Alex gonna say? And then that's stopped me from showing you half of the bad ideas.
No, that's the bad way
Not the
to
bad
approach
jokes.
it, I think.
No, not that I'm saying, like, I'm able to take the way you're thinking and actually apply it to myself.
That's awesome if you can do that with many people. Now, I think the way I'm sorry, Connor, I'll give you this in a second. I
Oh,
just
no,
wanna
you're good.
react-
It's just that.
react off of Matthew is saying essentially what I think is a great thing is sort of take the spectrum of all the magicians you know. You have a trick like, okay, what are the Spanish guys gonna think? What are the technicians gonna think? And more importantly, what's my audience gonna think?
Yeah.
We've been thinking from the magician's point of view, but just why don't you take that same process and go, okay, if I show this to my mom, what is she gonna say? If somebody
will
paid a
just-
ticket to come see me in a show,
Yeah.
what are they gonna say?
Different levels of investment.
Absolutely. So I think it's a great process to have, but just to be very clear, I think the end goal is everything but to prevent people sharing ideas. It's the very opposite. Show all the bad ideas in the world, because
Yeah.
Matthew, and I think you can do this. The moment you show me something, I go, "Holy shit, that was amazing." I think it's even more meaningful if I've been saying that's
That's true.
mediocre, that's lackluster, this misses this. So it also brings more meaning to the good job. I'll
That's
go
true.
back to that.
Yeah, it was Ben Hart's book at the ending where he said that like collaboration is a
Yeah.
place where we can all succeed, and like that really stuck with me. And I was just thinking about that and thinking about this podcast, thinking about you guys. But like exactly that process is of bringing the idea out and like having people tell you it's bad is really difficult because nobody wants to hear that it's bad. Like nobody wants to hear that, you know. But it's just part of the process.
Well, I know that we have many opinions coming, so I'll try to direct this.
Yeah, this will be super short. What's so cool about this is that we all have a little piece of ourselves and each other in all of our acts. Over
Yeah.
the past 2 months, we've been doing these Zoom calls pretty much every day and working and putting out bad ideas and critiquing brutally and getting to the point where we really trust each other on each other's opinions, and the collaboration, exactly what you were saying, Connor, really is a wonderful process.
I also have a pretty short point to make, so hopefully I can leave it to Sanjeev for something a little more lengthy. It's a quote or a saying that I heard by Javi Benitez while doing a workshop. Amazing magician, by the way.
He's a savage.
He's incredible.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And he said, when you collaborate, and he was actually saying in Spain versus the world, he said, sometimes I come in here in the US and share with people, and every time you go on the table to jam, you place a bill in front of you. Let's say a coin of €2. That's what he said. said everyone places that coin of €2. If everyone shows ideas and doesn't want to critique honestly, you leave. You take your €2 back. You place it in your pocket. In Spain, you're on the table. Everyone puts €2 in front of them. We all share ideas. We all critique. We build stuff together. We're honest. In the end, somehow we all leave with everyone's €2. So if there's 5 of us, we
Interesting.
all leave with €10 somehow. And I just thought that was a wonderful analogy.
That's awesome. That's
That
super
is,
cool.
I do like the way of looking at that, and
And that's sort of the process that we've been going through.
it is. I mean, that's the birth of this
Interesting.
podcast
Well, that's
came
exciting.
through the collaboration that we had been doing for months. So, and Sanjeev, just to let you know, I'm giving it to you, giving you the word, and start finalizing your comments because we are nearing the end of this podcast. So,
This time flies, man.
time did fly.
That was
Time
fast.
did
That
fly.
was
Yeah.
snappy.
It's a shame. Okay. One final point that I think is a really important caveat to make is, again, coming back to what makes good magic. I think it is really important. We've talked about this side of the offering criticism, why it's important, and how to take the criticism. But I think one thing that's really important, and I'm starting to have more trouble with this now, or at least I'm more aware of it now, maybe, and I think it'll at least resound with some of you, is I think it's really important to ask, how do I feel about this? And it might seem like a really easy question to answer, but I think it's really not, right? It's so easy to get not bogged down by, it's so easy to obsess over the opinions of others, to obsess over what other people may think, that sometimes we lose sight of who we were in the first place. There's this beautiful quote: when you paint over yourself to look like what others want you to look like, sometimes you forget what you looked like in the first place. And that's scary. That's scary. And so I think it's always important to remember, okay, who am I? Does this resound with me? And sometimes a lot of people will give you extremely useful advice, but it is from their point of view. And you have to have the self-awareness, the humility, and the clarity to look at that and say, yes, these are all good points, but I think that this more accurately conveys the image that I want to convey. And so I will thank them for their time, thank them for their attention, and continue doing what I'm doing. And I think that's important to always have as an option.
Yeah.
So what did you say? Humility, and what are the other two?
Humility, clarity, and self-awareness. I don't know why I put
I
those
think
two.
you
They seem
summed that up
right.
beautifully.
Yeah. Hit the nail on the head on that one.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, I don't think anybody can say anything to follow that. I think that
We don't need to.
we don't
That's
need
a
to.
perfect
That is
endpoint.
exactly.
And you know what? I still want to clarify a couple, and
Oh, of course, Alex.
I'm not gonna add anything on top of Sanjeev because I think he nailed beautifully. But I'm just also gonna finish something on the other direction, maybe just to nail this down. So just in the end, be productive, but don't be a dick.
Yeah.
I think as in the end,
Yeah.
or be a dick when people are ready for you to be a dick and are ready to see past that. Because I see Matthew, I was already laughing. Yes. And eventually, I think it's very important for people to find other people whose judgment you trust and who trust your judgment. And it has to be a two-way thing.
Nice.
Definitely.
So when you're meeting people for the first time, just going to critique their thing. Okay, do you want me to give you my take on what you just did? Yes, no. And if it's say no, thank them for doing an amazing magic trick, or thank them for trying. And if they want, well, then put €2 on the table and go away with 4.
Oh, good way to end, man.
That was poetic.
That was
poetic.
savage.
Snaps.
Gentlemen, that was beautiful. I know unfortunately, we didn't have the time today to really dive into this subject, I think, as we all wanted. I think there's still a lot of things that were perhaps left unsaid. So
We need a
I don't.
part two,
None
or
of this.
We need a part two for this.
I think we
Just
might
saying.
need a part 2, but I'm going to challenge our listeners to come and talk to us and further this discussion themselves. Bring your points to the table because we would love to discuss them when we do a part 2 of this, because it's a when, not an if at this point. I think we're all pretty sold.
Ungimmick 2, Electric Boogaloo. Alex got it. Alex knows what I'm talking about.
Before we do finish the episode, we have our last segment for today. Sanjeev is going to be doing our assembly. So Sanjeev, take it away.
Yes, Gonzalo, thank you. As usual, I think my approach with segments in general is, what is the most whack thing I can possibly present you guys and the listeners of this podcast with, because I think it's stuff that's way outside our schema of the world that challenges our perspectives the most. So today we've talked about good magic versus bad magic, or specifically good magic versus not good magic. That's a more accurate representation. And Alex brought the parallel to music right at the beginning. So I want to offer a musical composition to you guys, a piece, and I want you all to listen to it after this podcast and form your own opinion on it. Is it good music or bad music? And this is specifically a composition, a 3-movement composition by American composer John Cage. And the piece is called 4:33, or also called 4 minutes 33 seconds. That's the name of the piece. You can look it up on YouTube, and I'll tell you right now, it is longer than 4 minutes and 33 seconds. It's around 7 minutes in length. Don't feel cheated, but sit down, listen to the whole thing, and just write down what you think about it. And I think that process will give you insight.
And send it to us on Instagram.
No,
Or
I don't
Facebook.
really want to know
No?
what you think,
Oh.
actually. But, do it
Oh,
for
okay.
yourself.
I don't know.
Just
I was just
Yeah.
trying to get the social media plug in there. Sorry. I'll listen to it too, by the way.
Fair. Yeah. I think it's a process of self-reflection that you guys find valuable.
Okay.
And boys, you guys, I do want to hear from you. Spam the chat, whatever. I think it's an interesting piece. I think it's
right.
interesting.
Sanjeev, thank you for that. Just as a little recap of today, Matthew recommended Svengali by Darren Brown, and you can find that on YouTube. Connor recommended us friendsandastronauts.com. Go get your magic and go support good magic. And then Sanjeev told us to go listen to 4 minutes 33 seconds, which I'm assuming is also available on YouTube, because everything is on
Yes,
YouTube.
by
these
John
days.
Cage.
By
Just like the
John
podcast.
Cage.
Just like the
On
podcast. YouTube.com/ungimmick. Facebook.com/ungimmick. We're on Instagram.
Patreon.com/
Instagram is @ungimmick. Yes, Matthew, thank you for the Patreon as well, because it's patreon.com/ungimmick. And that's UNGIMMICKED ungimmick.
I was about to ask.
See, I read minds.
He's a mentalism.
Gentlemen, thank you for coming on today. Thank you all so
Thank
much
you,
for
man.
listening, and
Thank
we
you.
will see
That
you
was
in
great.
the next episode
That was great.
of Ungimmick.
Bye, everyone.
Bye,
Oh my
guys.
God.
Adios.